I haven't done it yet, but I always like it's a possibility. This chair reclines so much, I could probably sleep in it.
I seen that when I was looking at like their website. They said it reclines back in a great position for naps.
Yeah, wait. Now that one of the things that this camera, since it's wide, you might actually be able to see. But hang on.
Yep.
No, just.
I want to do the podcast like this.
I mean, if you just adjust your microphone arm,
yeah.
you probably could.
Yeah, get the mic down.
The arm's not long enough.
There you go.
How's this? Is this? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, can you see your notes from there?
Kind of. I might have to get my glasses. Oh. Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it goes down easy enough, but coming back up, geez, oh man, it's a struggle for me and the chair. Hello and welcome to another episode of Bry Guy and His Super Friends. I'm your host, Brian Labick. Joining me for this episode is someone who is a Computational Service Inc. sales representative by day and a super friend by night, Josh Zorch.
That seems pretty believable.
And even in an ideal sitcom world, New Jersey still sucks. So here to tell us all about it is Mike Bradley.
I mean, Jersey sucks. That's like I mean, you're not going to get an argument from me on that. I don't know why I'm here to tell you about it, but I am perfectly willing to just say, yeah, Jersey sucks.
I mean, you've at least been to New Jersey, right?
I've been to Atlantic City.
Okay,
and
that
I've
counts.
been to Hoboken, going into New York City. So,
yeah,
but that's it. Like very briefly, and I mean, I guess Atlantic City. That was a weekend, but it was shitty. I mean, it's Atlantic City. It's like a shitty Vegas. So they have shitty Vegas and they have shitty New York. And everything else is just like nothing.
There you go. Travel New Jersey.
Yeah.
Visit Westview.
I guess you were willing to sacrifice our many, I'm sure they exist and are real New Jersey listeners.
New Jersey knows what they are.
I'm trying not to lean too hard into it because I actually do have family in New Jersey. I don't think anybody listens, so but apologies to all of my New Jersey relatives if anyone listens. I figured it was a joke. I stuck with it anyway.
They know what
Nice.
they are. It's they're not Florida, but they're close.
My one complaint about New Jersey driving around there for a day was like everywhere I tried to make a left turn, it was like don't make a left. That was my takeaway from Jersey.
I actually liked that a lot. That they have like the jug handle type of intersections set up a lot more.
Yeah.
I actually really like roundabouts more than anything. They work way better, but America is all like, no, that's from somewhere else, so therefore it must be bad.
Right.
Yeah, they did
Yeah,
that
I
on
think it's more
Mythbusters
just,
and
like,
roundabouts are better.
Trying to like drive around a place where you're not sure where you're going and you're trying to follow directions. It's just the not being able to make the left was really, really.
Wait, is this like pre-GPS days where like you're like, I need to go that way, but I don't know how to go that way?
I'm trying to remember now if I had a GPS at the time or if it was still just trying to go, go off a map or like, hey, to go to this street, go to this street.
Do you remember?
All I remember was every
someplace
intersection
new?
I went to, I was like, well, I need to go that way, but I can't. It won't let me. Traffic says I need to go the other way.
Do you remember
was
like
really
the days of
disorienting.
going someplace new and you would go onto Google Maps and print out the directions you needed?
Even before that,
yes.
MapQuest. MapQuest
Well, yeah,
was the way to
MapQuest.
go.
Well, and I
And
mean,
I
like our
got
parents
to-
remember like going to AAA and getting them to make a trip tick, and it would be this
Oh,
whole
yeah.
ridiculous
Oh, man.
thick booklet of how to fucking get there, and you'd be like, now we look at that and we're like, wow, we were inefficient. We cut down trees to make that happen.
This is our old people talk, kids. For anyone that's under 20 that happens to
You
listen.
remember? I remember.
Yeah. Back in my day.
Remember Chewbacca?
All right, so we're at the top of the show. What I've been trying to do is see if you guys want to plug anything. Josh, I'll start with you. Anything you'd like to plug?
Nope.
Fair. Mike, anything you want to plug?
You can come and watch me on Rare Achievements on Twitch. You can also check out the YouTube channel for Rare Achievements. And, yeah, that's really about it. I mean, I'm awesome. Come check me out. Check out the awesome and bask in it. And
Are you starting your schedule this week?
Yes. Yeah. So, Mondays and Fridays, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 6 to 10 p.m. Eastern. With exceptions made when we're recording these podcasts. I'll be doing that on Tuesday this week, so no Tuesday this week, but Wednesday and Thursday. Actually, by the time you hear this, probably this will be past. So yes, 6 to 10 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, unless I'm recording a podcast. So go for that, kids. Figure out my schedule for me, and occasionally on the weekends, but those are unannounced and unplanned. It's just when I feel like doing it.
Bonus episodes.
I mean, maybe if I put more work into them, I'll call them episodes. For now, it's just like, yeah, I'm there. I'm playing a game. Come watch.
Fair enough. As for myself, if you want to follow me at all, I am on Twitch as Jedi Bry Guy, Jedi with an I, Bry with a Y. I also use the same name for YouTube. I haven't done much on YouTube, but you can follow me or find me there. And what the hell, if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Jedi Bry Guy also. You can find me there. As for this episode, big surprise, we're back for more WandaVision. If I had to guess, I'd say in probably 2 weeks we'll be back for another episode of WandaVision, since the series will be wrapped by then. Since we talked about the first half of WandaVision 2 weeks ago, this episode will be focusing more specifically on the two most recent episodes, which is episodes 6 and 7. And since, we already sort of covered that, or the previous episodes a couple weeks ago, we're just going to get into what happened these last 2 weeks. So since we're diving right in, I'm going to give you the spoiler alert right now. So if you are not caught up to the latest episode of WandaVision, which at this current moment is episode 7, pause us and come back to us after you've caught up, and we will be here waiting for you. Last call, spoilers to follow for WandaVision.
Wee-oo, spoiler! Wee-oo, spoiler! Something like that.
All right, so we're going to jump right in. Again, 2 weeks ago, we went over what was happening in the show. We went through some theories, covered our own speculation, sort of what's going on. Now that we've made it to episode 7, we have some answers, and obviously a few more questions. So we're going to start. I figured it'd be easier to just start with some of the questions we sort of asked the last time and just kind of rehash what we've learned, I guess. So one of the things we were diving into and questioning for a while and theorized was about what's up with Wanda's neighbor, Agnes. So the big reveal for episode 7 was that Agnes is confirmed to be Agatha Harkness. Now, that was a name that we actually didn't really bring up when we recorded. I think it was a name I was trying to get to that I couldn't remember. We ended up sort of going down a different path for our discussion. I also feel like I need to have a shout out at this point to a coworker of mine, Chris, who has been telling me for 3 weeks that Agnes is Agatha. So, kudos for you for calling that. So, anyway, how do you guys feel about that reveal?
Mike, I'm only going to go first because I feel like there's a better chance that you have familiarity with the character because of your more extended comics background reading. I mean, like by episode 3, you've definitely got the I don't say the impression, but you understood how they're framing these episodes and how they're putting them together, and every single one is going to end on a important occurrence, a reveal, a moment, a cliffhanger-ish of sorts. That's how they're all going out. So it's not a surprise that that's how this stopped, but it was. I honestly felt like I think it would have been more appreciated and a better experience if it had continued for a little while beyond that. So,
to answer the question, minutes in the episode, are you saying?
I mean, this was already the longest episode they did, so a few extra couldn't hurt.
And that's true, and they did, and as we've talked about before, like, Mike brought up, I think last time, that the run times get a little deceiving because it'll say, well, it's a 30-minute episode, but there are like 7 to 8 minutes of credits that they run at the end, mostly, and it's okay that they do this, but mostly due to them, crediting many different, and all their Netflix shows do this now, and even I think Disney Plus does it to a large extent, of crediting all of the international, different language overdubs that they, give to those voice actors and whatnot. So the idea that like the runtime for this actually was about 30 minutes of programming. But yeah, for some reason, like it just sort of stopping dead there. Like once you're 7/9 of the way through this thing, and you've only, in my opinion, you've only really gotten finally to a important point of revelation that actually provides explanation of some sort, and then they just stop it right there. I think it would have been more helpful for the viewer and just a little better experience. So to answer the question, like, how do you feel about the reveal? The reveal itself is sort of separate from me of like how it was given to me and what the like impact of viewing it was. For me, like, not really knowing who this person is per se, I don't think it was all that shocking to find out that they cast, a high profile, well-known, brand new actor to be in this series who ends up, it turns out, being an important role just beyond like the basic plot. Like they could have used Catherine Hahn as a neighbor character still in it who played, an important role in something to happen, but the fact that she turns out, to be part of the explanation as well.
Yeah.
Being important to the events that occur and being important to why they are occurring, very different. So it's not all that shocking that it went there, but I'm hoping that the final 2 episodes, because I think they still have a long way to go to, I don't say like wrap up the story necessarily, but in like the arc of traditional storytelling with establishment, rising conflict, rising action, understanding things, coming to realize, like, they have a long way to go, I think, to still clear those hurdles in just the last 2 episodes. And I feel like since they only are now at the point where they're really, like, I feel like they're only about halfway through the story.
So when you were talking about the episode length, it got me thinking something that I forgot to put in my outline that I'm going to try to reference here. And I put it up on the Facebook page because there's been some confusion. If you've read the internet, prior to episode 7, people were under the impression that 7, 8, and 9, those episode numbers, were going to be an hour in length. And apparently every headline you saw said that Kevin Feige said this. And then you watch episode 7 and it's 30 minutes. You're like, what the hell? I was expecting an hour. So I found an article from Inverse that is like, so what the hell? Like, where did this rumor start and what's going on? So all these headlines that were saying Kevin Feige said it's going to be an hour long for each of this episode. Apparently Kevin Feige never fucking said that. So welcome to the internet, people. You trace back the source of wherever this quote came from. Apparently there's a site called Superhero Spotlight, which credits Kevin Feige as the source. If you click the link on their Facebook post, you go to an article from Collider, which Collider interviews WandaVision director Matt Shakman. In the interview, Shakman claims that the runtime for the total series is 6 hours in length. So, roughly 20 minutes per episode. We had gotten up to 6 episodes, so people were saying, okay, we're at, 30 minutes or whatever for runtime for an episode. So we're up to, 3 hours for the first 6. So logically, that would mean that the last 3 episodes should be an hour each. So that was where that rumor came from. People just did math and was like, well, there's 3 hours left. We got 3 episodes, so that's an hour each. Nowhere in here can I see anything that says Kevin Feige said this. So I don't know where the fuck that started, but that irritates the shit out of me. So even still, we don't know. And, to Josh's point, if there is that much more to cover, and if this director is correct in saying there's a total runtime of 6 hours for the series, and that's the other thing, depending on your math, you may or may not be counting the credits that are 5 or 6 minutes in length every episode. So there might even be less on the back end to get through. And for all we know, 6 hours was a ballpark number that this guy gave out. We don't know if it's 6 hours exactly. It could be give or take that. Who the hell knows? Either way, we're going to assume at least 2.5 hours left to go, then that could mean that, the very last 2 episodes might actually be longer. That's not confirmed. We don't know. This is, again, just based on a 6-hour total runtime. And we know we've only gotten so far through that runtime thus far. So, for anyone that's confused saying, why the fuck did Kevin Feige lie to me? Kevin Feige never said that, so stop reading the internet, people, and just watch the fucking show. Stuff like this irritates the shit out of me. How something like one quote from someone that's not even right catches fire on the internet and everyone's retweeting it and talking about it like it's legit. That irritates the shit out of me. So that's just me and my rant. Rant is over.
We now bring you back to our regular program.
Yeah. Sort of to your earlier point, Josh, too, about how the episodes just kind of end. I feel like that's like TV 101. Like if they're going sitcom, like we're going to end on the cliffhanger to get you to come in next week. That's kind of just what I'm sort of expecting, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, I think people are just getting a little bit too accustomed to series dropping as a whole over the last few years.
Right.
And they don't want those cliffhangers anymore. But, that's how they get you to come back. That's, like you said, TV 101. Give you a reason to show up next Friday. Same bat time, same bat channel.
And I also had to remember and sort of realign my expectations on it, because really, like old sitcom format did not rely. It was not produced as a mini series.
Right.
Right. So like we're rewatching The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air on HBO right now.
Yeah.
While there are longer form narratives that could carry throughout, a season or part of a season, every single episode is not built in that way to just leave you off a moment to come back next week to find out how it resolves. So this is sort of an amalgam of more modern storytelling, maybe with something like a Game of Thrones, a Breaking Bad, those kinds of things where even if they're producing multiple series, it's kind of approached in a mini-series, limited series type of format.
I guess maybe in my mind,
used to that yet.
I'm using the word sitcom almost synonymous with like TV drama. I guess TV drama shows are the ones that always seem to end on a cliffhanger.
And this is masquerading as a sitcom. This is not a sitcom.
Right.
It appears like a sitcom in many ways, but the content is not a sitcom. It's much more a TV drama.
To Josh's point, that it's like even like paying homage to the sitcoms, like that's not a sitcom trope.
No, but that's because it's not a sitcom. They're paying homage in a lot of ways, but they're not actually a sitcom, and they're recognizing that too.
Right.
If they just played themselves off like a sitcom, like they wouldn't be able to, break that fourth wall and pop out to say like, oh, hey, look. It's not breaking the fourth wall, but they're breaking the sitcom to where like it's the Truman Show and people are watching outside, and
right.
So it's
got
its
that's
own
the thing.
There's kind of happening.
Exactly. There's definitely this mixture of flavors to it that I'm just not used to, and I gotta kind of reprogram myself to, and maybe if I do that, it'll be better enjoyed. Can we share the comment that Ian passed along to us?
Oh yeah,
do you think he would mind? I think so. I won't say who. So Ian in our group chat passed a message along from a family member, and said that, hey, this family member has an opinion on the show, and I'm going to share it with you guys. And it just said, I think if they released them all at the same time, it would be better. It was the most pure and innocent, like sweet take on something, that I think you could come up with. And but I think that rings true in that, like I said, that I will be interested when I go back and watch the whole series over like maybe 1 or 2 sittings in another couple months.
Right.
If just the general, if it flows better, like number one, is it going to just go from like moment to moment, episode to episode, and is that going to work? And if so, will I feel it will be better? And I know that's not going to change. Every one of these shows they're doing for the next 28 years is going to be this same way. So it's just something, like I said, different to have to get used to.
Well, it's also, I think, like after we did the last one episode we did for 1 to 5, right after we recorded that, I actually watched those 5 episodes again, back to back.
Mhm.
And one, just kind of knowing what's happening, so rewatching it is just fun to pick up on more stuff. But I think it did work better as a continuous, 5-episode story.
Right.
So I could definitely see, like, if you want to watch this as a miniseries and just watch them back to back as they come out, I definitely think it's better that way. But at the same time, I appreciate, and I kind of felt this way with The Mandalorian too, as doing this week to week. I like that every one of us that wants to keep up with this is all on the same page for a week at a time. Like, there's no like, okay, we can't talk because you're 2 episodes ahead of me. Like, we're all on the same page, so that gives us a week to spitball shit.
Mhm.
And that's the fun part of shows like this for me. That's something that's the type of discussion I always had around Lost, like when Lost was on, and me and all of my friends were into it. Like, the week to week discussions that would happen over that show, right or wrong, were just fun as hell to have.
Right.
So the fact
Okay.
that this show is doing that to people, and Mandalorian did it too, but I feel like this one has generated some really, really fun discussions between me and my friends, me and my coworkers, like just people that don't normally talk about this kind of shit, but we're talking about it all fucking week because every day we're reading something else that's like, oh, wait, did you hear about this? Like, what about this one? Like, that's fun to me.
And see, I'm looking forward to the day when there's more shows coming out doing this. Maybe not
Yes.
a show for every night of the week from Disney Plus, but maybe, there will be a time when we're getting The Mandalorian on Fridays and Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Tuesdays. So you
Yeah.
have that, like, oh, Tuesday's that night, well, Friday's that night, and you have that kind of thing where you have like a TV schedule like it used to be. A long time ago, you'd have a TV schedule like this is this night, that's that night, and then you'd have something to talk about midweek as opposed to a whole week of the same thing. There's the potential for them, through Netflix, through Disney, through a few of these platforms to have these awesome shows that pop out on specific days. It would be interesting. It would be fun.
Yeah.
But-
Mike, we sort of started getting sidetracked already, but I want to spin
Yeah.
back around to you. How do you feel about the reveal for Agatha?
So I didn't really think of Agatha during our last. I mean, Harkness. I'm not going to call her Agatha. Like, Harkness is the character in the term I've always referred to the character, so I'm going to continue to do that. I didn't really think of her going into our discussion last time, because she's not really a major player in any way. Like, she does big things, and she's kind of, like, there and part of Scarlet Witch's story, but, I mean, more of that I had to kind of look up and refresh myself on.
Yeah, I did try to write, like, a little bit of a summary on her that I could find, so I can go over that if we want.
Well, I mean, for me, like, is it something I expected? It depends, like, for me, still on what direction they go. Because Harkness really isn't a villain.
That's sort of what I found too. It's like it's hard to
So-
tell what side she is on.
Yeah, she could just be there protecting Wanda. Like, she could be trying to be a motherly figure for Wanda at that point. So, depending on what direction they go, I could, see different things happening. But in terms of, like, the reveal, yeah, I mean, I'm fine with it. I don't have any problem with it. It makes sense for the character. They're not putting themselves in a position where they're reaching,
Yeah.
to, like, a lot of the things we had come up with felt like they would definitely be reaches.
Yeah.
The things we discussed last time, they would have all been a reach. This, in terms of the content that does exist currently, is not really a reach. This makes sense. It fits. I just would not have expected them to pull a fairly unknown character to most people,
Right.
or somebody that doesn't really connect to anybody but Wanda.
Right.
So seeing this, I think it's a good thing in terms of seeing that Disney is willing to explore some of the much lesser known characters that exist
Yeah.
in a bigger way. Because, I mean, yeah, you have lesser known characters that they touched on or that, were present for a short period, like Batroc the Leaper. I mean, he gets a fight with Cap and that's it.
Yeah.
But, having them touch on it in a much more narrative way, I think that's a promising sign for the future in things that maybe more tight fandoms, smaller fandoms of characters have a chance to see some real focus on their favorites,
Yeah.
whoever those may be, you know?
Yeah, I guess I didn't mind the reveal. Like we talked last time, I really wanted this to be like whatever was happening in Westview. I really wanted it to be Scarlet Witch and her problem. I really was hoping that they wouldn't bring in another person or villain, and then it's like, oh, it's all this person's fault. So now we can direct, the solution has to come from stopping this other person, not Wanda, someone else. I think that's the easy out from a story's perspective. But if this seems to be the way they're going, I'm fine with that. Not my preference. I would have rather seen something else, but I'm fine with it. I think it'll work well. And if they go this way, I think it leads. Like I have a theory that I think we can get to later, but I think it will lead to other villains, and we were trying to speculate how this drops into Doctor Strange too, since this is going to lead into that.
Mm-hmm.
And we were speculating whether or not Wanda would be the villain in that movie because we know she's in it, but I think what's happening is definitely going to lean into another villain, not her. So she still might be aiding Doctor Strange in that movie, I think.
Well, and the other thing I think that's important to note here is that you still may have them having to take on Wanda. Because even if Harkness is the reason it's all happening, there's nothing that says Wanda wants to give it up.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Because
I'm
it's
still
still
hoping
her power
there's
that's causing it.
right. So I'm still hoping there's some meaty story stuff there. That confrontation is something I want to see.
Yeah.
So just because I looked up some of the stuff. So for anyone that I guess doesn't really know too much about Agatha, so the little bit that I looked up, and I tried to just pull relevant stuff because she does have more crap that happens to her and whatnot. But in the comics, sort of they explain in the show, Agatha is a witch. So she was apparently around, like in olden times, around for the Salem witch trials and all that stuff. She eventually relocated and for the most part seemed to live, as far as I can tell, live in peace for a lot of time. She crosses paths with other magic-wielding characters in the comics, more specifically had some dealings with Wanda. At one point, she was burned at the stake by a group known as the Salem's Seven, who were hunting witch people like powered like that. Wanda then had to battle the Seven, which led to some sort of buildup of magical energy. She was unable to dispel all of the energy, and at that point, whatever she couldn't dispel, she used to set in motion what became the events that caused her to get pregnant with her and Vision's children. At some point later, Agatha comes back from the dead, as you do in comics, claims Wanda's children were fragments of Mephisto's soul. Mephisto eventually reabsorbs Wanda's children, so they are gone. But instead of aiding Wanda to try to save the children, Agatha wipes Wanda's memory of the children ever existing. Eventually, Wanda finds out the truth about Agatha tampering with her memories, and she kills her. Sometime later, she gets resurrected again, blah, 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 blah. And in amongst all the other stuff, too, it does, like sort of Mike was saying, Agatha sort of is a mentor to Wanda, helps her train her powers, use her powers, that kind of thing. It's a little unclear, again, if Agatha is a friend or ally, because it seems like she's sort of done both here and there. Like, for the most part, she's helped the Avengers, she's done some good things, helped Wanda, but at the same time, she does some shitty things here and there, so it's hard to tell.
Chaotic neutral.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm. I didn't, honestly, like, when I looked it up, I remembered the parts about her helping. That I took that as a refresher, like, that, okay. And I didn't really go any further with everything you just said. So I guess, you're saying it's going to lead into Mephisto, which makes sense.
Yeah.
And Mephisto opens a lot of doors in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
Because Mephisto's kind of a big bad. And that's interesting. Like, hearing that, like, about the character, and it makes sense 100% now as to why she's there and what's going on. And yeah, I'm excited to see what they do, and if that means that Mephisto is going to be the Doctor Strange focus instead of Mordo, or Mordo's going to be assisting Mephisto, I'm down for all of that.
I before we go further, I would say that let's give props to Mike actually for our discussion last week, because he brought up the possibility of additional like magic users, witches, I think, even like were mentioned. And I know, at least for my part, I kind of really discounted that, only for the main reason of most of what the creators of the MCU have done is provide a rational explanation as to why something that didn't exist 8 chapters ago now suddenly is okay to have been there the whole time. And I didn't really see an easy way for them to get from A to B. So, and part of what I think I meant with the last, my last comment about they only have 2 episodes left, they got to make this all make sense. That's a big chunk of it for me. Whether you have a Mephisto involvement or you have other witches and whatnot, like they need to do a good job in explaining. And I think that the same challenge is almost going to be there when they do the Eternals movie. How am I rationally supposed to believe that through the events of everything that they've presented to us thus far, were all these other things also, tangentially present but never involved, never revealed, never, anything like that. So, and if they do a good job with that, I can buy it. And I think real quick. So I think that was part of why I also thought that another few minutes at the end of this most recent episode would have been valuable, because they could have maybe started to lay a little bit of that out, but just ending where they did felt a little bit too shocking, a little too convenient. Like, what's going on? There's other witches. Of course there are other witches. Bye, folks. It just cut off a little too quickly for me. Like I said, they're better storytellers than that, and so I have faith in what we will get, hopefully.
Yeah.
But it felt a little too abrupt to me. So go ahead.
So I can throw out a few ideas on that for you to maybe help you understand. First and foremost, I'll throw out the Mephisto and Eternals stuff, and then I'll get into what you just said. In terms of the Eternals, they are created. The Eternals are not some eternal being that have always been around or have been there in the background of all this. As far as I can recall, the Eternals are created by an event that happens. I'm not going to get into spoilers because the movie might be coming out this year or whatever, but there's something that happens with a certain thing that we've already been introduced to, and it creates these people with these powers. They're not mutants, they're not... It's different, but it's a superhero explanation, basically. But it does happen due to an event. So there is a chance that they haven't been around this whole time, and that we get a true origin on the Eternals that results from the fallout of Infinity War. Or this, or something else going on inside the Marvel Universe. So, there's that. Mephisto, on the other hand. First and foremost, Mephisto is bound to his own realm, unless released, as far as I can recall. Which, Mephisto's realm is hell, essentially. Mephisto is Satan. That's how, they weren't allowed to call him Satan when they wanted to make these back in the day because of the comics code. And so they looked up lore and found out Mephistopheles was a way they could get around that. Where the character Mephistopheles in, myth and legend basically is our Western version of Satan. So they went with that. And again, as far as I remember, there's at least versions of Mephisto that are bound to his own realm. He can appear in this realm, but does not really have power over it. So think Ghost Rider. Like, you've seen the Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider movie. he can appear here, make a contract with Johnny, but he really can't do anything to force anybody here to do anything. So unless he's released or has something going on outside of hell, he's not necessarily a threat. But when he manages to break free from those chains, he's a huge threat. So I think having Mephisto on the sidelines makes sense. Mephisto would just be like, shit, half of everything just died? I get all their souls? Fuck yes, I'm not getting involved in this, let it happen. And then he wouldn't be able to get out to stop it. You know what I mean? Like, he wouldn't be able... He could try to influence the outcome, but he wouldn't be able to actually use power on Earth to fight beside Thanos and preserve the souls that he has.
Okay.
If, presumably, he even got their souls. We don't know what the hell happened to them during the snap. That's not...
Right.
Were they dead? Were they just somewhere else? Were they in another plane? Who knows? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But in that scenario, he technically really wouldn't have a horse in the race or be able to do anything about it. Now, in terms of what you were saying about Wanda and Harkness and everything that's going on, so there's a scenario I'd like to throw out there for you guys that is a possibility, and I feel like given the way they showed it, with the reveal. So, like, they have the reveal happen that it's Harkness, and then they have, like, oh, look at this, that was Harkness. Oh, look at this, that was Harkness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in that very, like, 50s, 60s TV-style montage.
Yeah.
That they show it happen. There's a chance that Harkness is also a non-willing participant here, that Wanda mentally is using as a scapegoat for herself.
So can
where
I ask,
she's able to make Harkness seem in her own mind on the show like, oh, we can blame it on Harkness because she feels guilty about what she's doing, and mentally she's looking for something to blame it on to draw the blame away from herself, and that she knew Harkness after when she was a child in Sokovia. She knew this woman. And maybe that's how they play it, is that Harkness wasn't actually a witch. She's like their version of Harkness in the MCU could be that she's just there, and this is Wanda trying to get out of the situation she put herself in by using a scapegoat. And she has her there because she wants her there, just like Pietro, just like Vision. She has this person from her past that she can pull in.
Which is an interesting point to bring up, that I'm not, and I think they could still work their way out of this. I think they have shown us Agatha's involvement in very specific things, but still the origin of the entire scenario and really her complete role in it is still yet completely unexplained.
Yes.
Which would, and again, that's another chunk of where they, need to wrap this up in 2 last episodes. But I agree with, and we said it last time, Brian, you said it earlier today again, that the notion that hopefully they're not just laying this out to be someone else's fault, so that we can absolve Wanda of everything. Combined with, some things, Mike, that you just offered that could be good hypotheses about how it could be integrated, and some other explanations as to what the role really is. I'm hoping for kind of a combination of the two. I think I agree that I don't want to take this entire journey only to have Wanda absolved of it all.
Yeah.
As someone said earlier, that regardless of how she got there, how this started, why it's happening, Wanda has absolutely, it seemed, happily taken operator control of it, and she is
Willing participant.
Yes. And whether she knew that was happening at the beginning or not, still yet to be determined, etc. Once she understood where she was, what was happening, whatever, and maybe it is one of those things like, the devil whispers in your ear and gave you she was the devil was the muse, Agatha was the muse, something, and Wanda ran with the idea and made the whole town. Maybe it was her from the beginning with some nudging from the subconscious that she didn't realize was there. All these things could be possibilities. But I do like the notion that so far that I don't want it to just be, okay, we've told you it's Agnes's fault, and so therefore we'll wrap the story up in some way and we'll move forward. But I also don't think that they've 100% presented that to us yet.
So one thing that just occurred to me too.
Yeah.
So the few times that Vision breaks through people's like whoever's controlling the town.
Yeah.
And granted, I guess I don't know. Now I'm talking myself out of it, but we've seen people, like we've seen Wanda control the town, but at the same time, whenever I'm thinking specifically like Norm, whenever Vision frees Norm and talks to him at work, he never specifically says Wanda, does he? Or does he say she is in my head?
Good
I'd
question.
have to watch it again to remember the exact words.
Because if we know it's Agatha, and Agatha could possibly be pulling the strings, and Wanda has said, do you think it's me controlling the whole town? I can't do that. But then granted, 3 episodes later, we see her do that or whatever. So that's why I'm sort of talking myself out of it. I thought maybe they'd get out of it that when Norm just says, it's her, she's in my head, he's not referring to Wanda. We're assuming it's Wanda.
Right.
I mean, there's a possibility here that she also, to create what she wanted to create, needed Harkness, needed somebody with Harkness's power that she could control. So she could be controlling Harkness and using Harkness's power to create some of this and control some of this.
Like, I see where you're going there. I just feel like it's a roundabout way to get back to just having Wanda do it.
Well,
like,
no,
I feel like it's a middle ground that we don't need. Like, just cut that out and you get the same result.
Well, I think, like I said, she pulled in Harkness because it's somebody from her past. She wanted Harkness there, one way or the other, and perhaps maybe there's something where she learned that she could do this.
Well, if it's
way
someone from
by pulling Harkness in,
if it's someone from Wanda's past, why doesn't she recognize her?
maybe she does. That's my she.
Well,
She
part
she
of-
doesn't overtly say that she doesn't. Yeah, I guess the point I'm getting at is she wants it to be this way, so she's playing it as that. Because if she recognizes her, Vision will know that she's important. You get what I'm saying? If she's really playing this deceptive angle, and she wants to keep Vision controlled because it's Vision, he's basically fucking android Superman, and he's dangerous to her if he doesn't want to be in the situation he's in.
I mean, I guess I could see it. It just, to me, it seems very convoluted to get to where you want to go. Just my take on it.
Well,
That's all.
I agree. But again, I think maybe the whole thing is kind of what I've said before about Wanda's powers on the last episode is she doesn't really have 100% control over the outcomes.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. And you could see here her pulling Agatha in and then having some undesired outcomes from doing so. You get what I like the idea of pulling in Pietro, and it's not the same Pietro. It could just be her own accident.
Right, we're led to believe on the last episode that it wasn't Wanda at all.
Right.
Well, and I kind of wondered about that as well, but I think in that montage that they show us at the end, I think part of what gets addressed that was just brought up is that I think we've been shown that Wanda is responsible for everybody's behavior and lack of mind control over their own mind as much as possible. Agatha is playing along.
Agatha's not under mind control. She's just there.
She's immune to it,
Right,
given her powers, because in that montage they revisit the scene from episode 6 of Vision finding her at, quote, the town's edge and,
Right.
Quote, snapping her out of it. And the moment he looks away, she like checks her makeup in the mirror. She's playing along because she knows
Right.
what Wanda's doing to everybody else. One thing that it sounded like you guys were skimming along, but I don't know if I subscribe to this, is sort of an Ego Peter Quill scenario where Ego wouldn't have been powerful enough to do what he wanted to do in Guardians 2 on his own, so he needed a second Celestial to amplify the power. So in a way, could one of them be using the other to amplify the power? I guess it could work, but I don't subscribe to that, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think more or less the questions that still have to be answered have not been, and those will clarify the other things that we're now bringing up, which is really who initiated it, who is willing, who is not, who is aware, who is not, and therefore what role does everybody play within that paradigm. I don't think we could conclude anything confidently, even with what we've been shown, until some of those very, very base that base information has been provided.
Yeah.
See, I like what you're throwing out there, though, that because it goes along with what I said. Like, Harkness gets pulled in against her will, but she's not able to free herself, but she's able to resist the mind control. Her powers are enough that Wanda can't control her mind, and she's terrified. And so she's playing along and giving Wanda what she wants to make Wanda happy, and playing along with the game. Because she could be just she could know what Wanda's truly capable of.
And I could have bought that until this episode. I think the end of this episode, like to me, what you just explained makes Agatha the victim. Nothing about what we just saw in this last episode makes me think she's a victim.
Well, what did you see that makes you feel otherwise? Remind me, refresh my memory, so that I'm...
Just the whole creepy vibe of the reveal of her, like, leading her into a creepy basement that looks like she's got some occult shit going on. And nothing about that makes me think she is sane and...
Okay. I forgot about that little bit. That little portion there.
Yeah.
It's an important portion to forget about, but I did forget about that.
Yeah, that's the part of the episode where it's like, okay, let me tell you my evil plan. And like Josh said, I think that's what they were probably ready to do, and then the episode just ends. So
yeah,
that's a villain move to me. But
or maybe that's what she's created to try and fight back against Wanda.
Yeah, I mean, if you're leaning into your explanation of like the scapegoaty thing, then yeah, that could track that. But I know, like, when we talked the last time, we were trying to figure out like Agatha's play in all this and how she fits in, and we were figuring she was something, but we didn't know what. But episode 6, like Josh was saying, when Vision finds her on the road, that sold me. I bought into that. I was like, oh, okay, no, she's not whoever we thought she was. She's a nobody because she's been affected by this too. So that scene worked for me the way it was supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when it's finally revealed the next episode that she is the baddie, I guess, that it still fooled me.
Mm-hmm.
But in one thing we sort of glossed over, again, when we talked about it before, we started touching on it a little bit here, but with the whole Mephisto thing. There's been theories flying around from Mephisto. We didn't dive into it that time. I think we all just kind of wrote it off like, we're not signing into that yet. But since I think that stuff is more back on the table now, Josh, I know you were texting me saying that I was going to say Fat Man on Batman. That's the old name. Fat Man Beyond. Kevin Smith's podcast had dove into some Mephisto theories. Now, I haven't been tracking a lot of that, so I didn't know what you remember, if there's anything that seems relevant now.
It might. Now, this... What I went back and listened to was their discussion after episode 6. They typically broadcast on Saturday nights, and I did not listen or watch to like that yet after getting the Agatha reveal. Even before that, though, I think I didn't hear a lot of very well-formed hypotheses to back up somebody's Mephisto ideas. And as we saw, like, some funny memes going around by like episode 4 or 5 of, kind of making fun of fans and speculative fans on a little bit. They just kept putting every snapshot of anything from every episode next to, someone saying, "Look, Mephisto! Look, Mephisto! Look, Mephisto!"
One of my favorites has been people are saying the tiger deck, like the tiger centerpiece on the kitchen table at one episode is Mephisto.
Like in a serious way, or like as part of the joke?
Like, I don't know. There was some symbolism there. I don't remember the reasoning, but it's like, oh, they're the tiger. That means something. Mephisto. Like, that's where we're at. Every episode
like they
was
want to
somebody
fit
else's
it in a
Mephisto
box.
or they're from Mephisto.
Right. They want it to fit in the box, so anything and everything will be a reason that it fits in the box. After episode 6, there were... Now, this is going to sound like a little bit of a stretch at first, but bear with me. So part of... And there's not a whole lot to this, but I think that these couple little tidbits were the most compelling, most succinct way to present a potential Mephisto theory that I've heard so far. Okay. So if we remember through the first 5 episodes, everyone carried a commercial or two in the middle of the episode. And after about episode 3, I heard a good theory that I think could fit, that the man and woman present in the commercials selling the products are either to represent or are supposed to be, in her memory, etc., are supposed to be Wanda's parents.
Okay. Yeah, I heard that.
It's not until episode 6 that you get a commercial with neither of them, and that is entirely different. It's this claymation type of like very 90s era commercial selling what appears to be like might be some kind of kids product, like let's get kids to eat yogurt in fun ways, right, type of thing, or like a Jello, so they don't really specify the product, but it just seems like something like that. So if you listeners, if you recall, this was the one where like there's a small, looks like a small boy on a very small deserted island with a palm tree and a stick of sand, and he is visited by a shark who offers him something to eat. Shark pisses off afterward, and the boy, for whatever reason, cannot open the food container, and therefore is lonely, withers away, starves, dies, and rots. That's where part of this really gets into metaphors, so bear with me, but I when it ties into the rest of the connections that were put forward, I could maybe tie the, see where you could tie this in. So one of their takes on it was that Wanda, the way that Mephisto could fit in is that Wanda gets what she has gotten. She gets what we are seeing because she effectively, literally made a deal with the devil. Whether she knew that's who it was, what she was really getting into, etc., yet to be determined. But the commercial in episode 6 could be a metaphor for that deal. Somebody is lonely, they are isolated, they are lacking what they need for physical and or emotional survival. Along comes someone to help, and while there's not necessarily the parallel of a quote deal presented in the commercial, somebody comes along to present what appears to be help, what appears to be sustenance, nourishment, physically, for the soul, for the mind, all of it. And over time, but quickly, the person who was given the resource realizes that it's inaccessible. The thing that they were counting on, or that they really need, is out of reach to them, or they don't know how to access it, etc. They don't have the tools, whatever. And that is the representation of what we're seeing with Wanda. A deal was made, the stage has been set, but no matter what she does with the circumstances, it's always challenging and always lacking in giving her the thing that she thought she was promised, and more importantly, maybe the thing that she actually needs.
Right. Okay.
That's the part where granted that could be a bit like that. That sounds like master's student English major type of, commentary on these things. I get that.
Right.
Tying that into more of the metaphor of making a deal with the devil, though, does kind of play out with me a bit. There's a couple of parts specifically in the like trick-or-treating scene in which Pietro is interacting with Wanda and the kids, in which potentially some deliberate wording is used. There's a part where he tells the kids want to go off and trick or treat on their own, and they have the conversation about yes, but don't go past Ellis Street, etc. Blah blah blah. And as they're leaving, Pietro excuses them, and what does he tell them? He says, "Get out of here, you little hellspawn."
Oh, so you think that's literal hellspawn?
Potentially. There's another time where in that conversation where like Pietro is also somehow in tune with what Wanda is doing. He is not, it is revealed in that conversation, he is aware to at least a large degree what this whole thing that they're existing in is, or at least what, more importantly, what it is not.
Yeah.
He understands it's not real. It's not authentic. And he signs off on it. He supports her and gives her assurance that he understands that it's okay of what she's doing. There's nothing really wrong with it per se. So he's kind of co-signing her bull crap, but he's also playing very coy in a way. And I heard somebody describe it as like that very much could be the way that the devil would talk to somebody.
So just extrapolating that, you're thinking the version of Pietro we get in the show is Mephisto?
After what we were shown in episode 7, I think that breaks down a bit.
Okay.
But there's also a moment in that exchange where he and Wanda are talking about the town. He refers to it as charming as hell. So a couple of these little pieces put together, somebody said, if you notice there are certain, quote, episodes of the show, and by the show, like the show within the show, the one that Wanda is presenting to the outside world, the one that she's letting go on this broadcast frequency that she's created. For the most part, there are characters who do not exist on the same episodes and do not interact with each other, even if they happen to for the littlest piece of time. And that some of the characters may be the shape-shifting form of the devil taking a role to influence, as Mike said, he can't maybe direct action and, wave a finger and boom, it happens, but it's the influencer. It's the voice in the back of your head.
Yeah.
So specifically two of the characters that were called out in this regard were Dottie from the first couple of episodes, the blonde, and Pietro. Now, I will say in episode 7, I think there's a quick moment somewhere toward the end where they do show Dottie again. I don't even know if she has a speaking line or not. And then you get a glimpse of Pietro again in the mid-credits stinger of episode 7. So yes, they're technically appearing within the same episode, never in the same place at the same time, etc. So if you have, and so far with Pietro, there's nothing about what he's doing that is attempting to directly influence action. He's going along with everything. They're doing an activity. He's with the kids. It doesn't seem like he is saying, let's do XYZ, or I'm being shown physically doing a thing that has an impact. It's like he's along for the ride. So this is all to say that I don't know if I am completely buy into this, will end up being the truth anyway, but I feel presenting it in this way has been one of the more strong cases for it so far.
Okay. For Pietro, I think for me, the Halloween episode that he was there for the majority of it, interacting with the kids and Wanda and all that stuff, and to your point, like talking about the conversation him and Wanda have about like him fully aware of what's going on. I wrote that off as like this is her brother, like someone who has seen her do stuff before, who knows her well enough to know what she's going through and completely sympathizes for what she's going through. And at the same time, he's asking her questions. Well, how are you doing this? Because probably the last time he saw her, she couldn't do shit like that. So obviously the next question is, how did you learn to do this? Like, I don't remember you doing any weird shit like this before. So I bought all of that. The part that I raised eyebrows to was the comment of like, what do you think your dead husband's going to die again? That to me was like, where the fuck did that come from? Because you've never met Vision. You don't know that he died. Like that to me was like, what the hell?
Well,
So, I don't know.
It depends. Pietro would have like the Aaron Taylor Johnson version would have potentially met him very briefly toward the end of the events of Ultron.
Fair point. Fair point. Yes.
But I agree with you that there was for different reasons I wrote that off. I wrote it off that if he is truly some type of result of manifestation of hers, she could, in theory, allow him to know everything she wants him to know, and to some degree be directing his emotional responses to things.
Right. Like we don't know, people that show up. Is it a manifestation of Wanda? Is it her sort of like externalizing her internal conflict? So basically it's conversations she's having in her mind, but she's talking out loud to someone, trying to rationalize what's going on, work through her grief, her denial, all that stuff. So with that in mind, it's hard to tell if these people that pop up, are they sent by someone else, or do they have some nefarious purpose, or is it just Wanda going through shit? But as far as like the Mephisto theory, I guess, Mike, I want to get you in. What do you think? Do you track any of that stuff? Does that sound plausible to you? Like that? Don't like that?
The theory about how all of it's tied together, some of it yes, some of it no. The theory about Quicksilver, no. But Harkness's presence and the children's presence and all that, that plays really well.
Yeah.
Into Mephisto being involved somehow or getting involved somehow, even if he's not already.
Well, the children are my next question. Like, we talked about that last time, but didn't really have too many answers. So since then, again, sort of the same thing, but like, what's up with the kids? Are they real manifestations? And to the bigger question,
they're not real, because Vision, even if he wanted to, could not impregnate her. Like, that can't happen.
Okay. Well, we still, I guess
that's not possible. He's a machine.
I guess I'm still unclear of the rules of the bubble. If something is created inside the bubble, are they real outside the bubble? Or, are they real that only exist in the bubble? Like, I feel like there's...
I think that's something that needs to be addressed as well in terms of the bubble, which we can get to after the kids, but, like, Vision's whole, like, falling apart trying to leave the bubble thing is something we should talk about. But,
yeah.
In terms of the kids in the whole Mephisto thing, they could just be, like, creations or figments of imagination or something along those lines. Like,
so if
they're
that's
not
the case,
real,
how would you explain where they went? Are they gone? Are they disappeared? Like, where? Like, because at the end of the episode that we're looking for them, we don't know where the kids are.
Right.
So any guesses as to what the hell happened to the kids?
Well, didn't you say in your summary of Harkness that Mephisto reclaims them at some point?
That was something that happened in the comics, correct?
I mean, if I had to guess right now, based on all the evidence at hand, they either just needed them to not be there and they'll turn back up, or Mephisto grabbed them.
Okay.
And has reclaimed something. I mean, one of those two things. But it could just be they're not really gone. They're just out of the way for the moment because they don't fit into what's happening in the plot. And they gave an excuse as to why they're away, and they'll find them, after. Maybe it's not an important plot point the way we might think it is.
So Agatha just sent them on vacation. They're in a field trip.
They're just... Or they're trapped in the basement somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was one part of like when they moved into those last 2.5 minutes, it felt like it went very fast.
Yeah.
Like we're decided, oh, guess what? It's time to show you things, and here we go. So the kids are, we don't know where. We're not going to tell you. They were at this woman's house, but like there wasn't even, in my opinion, there wasn't even a moment before that would seem to explain. Like the last thing they show you is like they're sitting on the couch with Agatha.
Right.
She's reassuring them, no, your mom's not crazy. And then all of a sudden, when Wanda gets there, it's time to say, now I'm suspicious. Where are the boys? Oh,
Right.
they're in the basement. Like, what the hell are you talking about the basement? Like, there was, it didn't need to like slap you in the face at some point that like, wait a minute, I think something is going to be going on later with Agatha and the kids. It just seemed very rushed.
Okay. I actually want to get to something else, the detail that's in the basement. And Mike, I don't know how much you're familiar with it, but Josh specifically, the book that we see, what is your gut reaction for that book?
I mean, just because of my background, my first and always impression of sparkly magical books with covers that look that way is the Necronomicon, but I know this is not an Evil Dead crossover as much as I would love it to be.
Well, I'm specifically asking you because I feel like my gut reaction was something from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh,
And I wasn't sure if you went there too.
The book. Refresh me.
Well, I don't know if Mike, are you familiar with any dark magical books in the Marvel universe?
Dark magical books in the Marvel universe. I know that Strange has one.
I think when I looked it up,
but I don't think it's a dark magical book.
There's a black magic or dark magic. I don't know what they're, but specifically Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. used this as a plot point for one of their seasons. But
what wasn't that right with Doctor Strangey times? Because when he had all those magical books in the Sanctum, and like he's like stealing the books from Wong and whatnot to read them, and so there was a lot of magical books they had there.
Yeah, well, I guess just I'm thinking specifically. My more of my knowledge comes from what it was used for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which the book looks different than what it was shown in the show.
Mm-hmm.
But it was referred to as the Darkhold.
Oh, that's right. That was I should not have forgotten that so much. That was used over like 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah. So I to me that's my gut reaction because I've seen it's a Marvel book. It's a Marvel Universe dark magic book that has dark powers, black magic associated with it and stuff like that. And specifically, depending on where you want to fall and whether or not TV and movie play nice together, that's sort of where I'm hesitating because I don't know if this would be like the MCU's version of the Darkhold or if this is supposed to be the same Darkhold that we've seen in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I had to go through slight spoilers for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but trying to go down like what was it used for in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and where do we leave it? From what I remember and a little bit that I read, trying to refresh my memory, the Darkhold was used by a character that eventually by the end of the season is trying to use it to bring life to an android, which could track for this show. And by the end of that show, Robbie Reyes as Ghost Rider has to take the book to hell to get rid of it. And I think that would track with some theories that are probably floating around. Apparently, I didn't watch The Runaways, but apparently the Darkhold shows back up in The Runaways, which I did not watch. So I don't know where it leaves from there, but that's after Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But again, it's unclear if it's the same version of that book or if these are just going to be like 2 different books. I would be fine and accept the fact that, this dark magical book change its appearance based on some weird magical explanation. I'm fine with that if it looks different. But if it's like the same book...
It's like Jumanji.
Yes, yeah. It changes its appearance based on the user or something like that. So
I mean, it's magic, so you can just get magic into a different appearance.
There is another term that I keep hearing thrown around these last couple of weeks is that either somebody said, and who knows, I know we just talked about like stupid internet information before, but it's been repeated enough that I don't want to say that just makes it true, but it does. It would not surprise me, given how Disney has structured their production, that this could be it. The term I keep hearing thrown around is, by the end of the season, there will be a, quote, Luke Skywalker level cameo in WandaVision.
Yeah.
Now, I don't subscribe to the idea that that is Doctor Strange, because we already knew, Kevin Feige said it at San Diego Comic-Con in 2019, said directly the first time these projects were revealed that WandaVision flows right into Doctor Strange 2. He said it on stage right there. There's no point in building up a, quote, cameo reveal. Like, getting Benedict in it for 2 seconds, to me, does not count.
But the general audience wouldn't have read that article.
That was one of my points, is that people that are coming to the show not following the Marvel stuff, are not reading the stuff we are. They might even know who Doctor Strange is, but if he pops up, it's going to seem important to them.
That is fair, but I still subscribe to the idea that it's not him. So therefore, if it is, what you're holding, what's that we got? Is that like 2
well,
points?
I have a second point I just want to try to get to. So that's just me trying to signal that, yes, I have something I want to add.
Gotcha. Okay.
The quote the time that quote happened was at the end of episode 3.
Okay.
Elizabeth Olsen was in interviews promoting the show, so it was before Evan Peters' reveal. Like the week before.
Okay.
So when I read the quote too, my gut reaction was, okay, we're getting Doctor Strange by the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And then that week, Evan Peters shows up, and my brain broke. And I said, nope, never mind. It's Evan Peters. That has to be the reveal she's referring to.
Yeah.
Could be.
I would agree that like the most shocking reveal they could have is combining what did exist that shouldn't exist within the MCU, but somehow now does through the multiverse.
Yeah.
I feel like, and then acknowledging it, not even like just being a pure recast, calling it, saying she recast him acknowledging that they're not the same, her acknowledging that he doesn't look the same.
Right. 100% tracks.
Pretty big.
Absolutely could be it. In the event that it isn't, and there's something yet left to be shown, and I only even brought this string up given what you just went off on, Brian, with the book and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., etc. What and you more than anyone I know have expressed over time your hope and displeasure about the segregation of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. from everything else. What if something like this, I don't think it's going to be Coulson. I think he was finalized and wrapped up several times in that show, but definitely by the end of season 7.
Yeah.
But what if it's you just named him? What if it's Ghost Rider?
I would love that. If they finally find a way to get Robbie Reyes in like the MCU proper type of thing, yes. I've been clamoring for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. characters, and I would love to fucking see them show up.
If any of this other stuff lines
Mephisto,
up, it could fit. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, Ghost Rider makes sense to introduce if you're heading down a Mephisto rabbit hole. He kind of has to show up.
Given, I guess, some of the stuff that we've sort of been covering here, I think the pieces are laid in place for sort of this theory that I've kind of gathered for what's going on. And Mike, I think, is piecing it together too. But my theory for this show, now that we're sort of veering into like Agatha's the bad guy and Mephisto's making a little bit more sense to me, I think that Agatha is either working for or trying to conjure up Mephisto. And Wanda's kids were the sacrifice that needed to happen.
Okay.
Maybe not specifically because they have fragments of Mephisto's soul. I'm sure they could find a detail to fit that. But maybe there's something in the book that gives details on how to conjure Mephisto. So if we're assuming this is the same Darkhold from the TV shows, maybe it's something like Mephisto, like Mike was saying, can't come to the world himself, so he sends the book first to tell the reader how to get him there. So by the end of the series, when this wraps up in 2 episodes, the multiverse breaks somehow. Mephisto shows up, and that leads into Doctor Strange 2. So, even to Josh's point, the big reveal at the end of this could be Mephisto.
And who they cast as Mephisto, which would also be amazing. Just to find that out, just to get that look at Mephisto and what they're going to do with it. Because Mephisto's another character where you're kind of afraid as to what they're going to do with it in terms of effects and how's it going to look, because he looks kind of ridiculous in the comic books to bring to live action. So I mean, they did good with Thanos, obviously, and they've done a good job with all of them so far. So I'm confident that they're going to do something right. It's just Mephisto gets to that next outlandish step.
Yeah.
Like, I think Dormammu is the one they could be most closely related, where they just skirted bringing Dormammu to a lifelike form
Right.
by having him be a face in the sky. In this case, what do they do? We got to wait and see if it's actually the case.
I mean, I'm still
But if
holding
it
out hope
is-
that these are all like stepping stones to full-on Galactus. Like, give me big fucking guy in space that holds planets in his hands. I want to see that in a movie.
I don't think we're not going to get that anytime soon.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I mean, that's definitely the Fantastic Four being tied to it more than anything. And until we have official announcements on when and how they're going to join and we figure that out, then we can start piecing together toward Galactus. But yes, I agree. I hope we're getting to that point as well.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that, it being the big reveal at the end.
I think
is-
based on the breadcrumbs of what we're getting right now, I think the pieces fall into place a little bit easier when I think about it that way.
Yeah. And I think it'll be a little bit jarring because we know, I mean, there's things we know that aren't going to happen in terms of like chronological order now because of the way the world went that could throw people off in the MCU, because this wasn't the order things were meant to be released in. So the next thing we're going to get is Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We've got a date for it. We've got a trailer, and we know it's not going to tie into this.
Yeah.
Or if it does, it'll be very tangentially. It will not be directly. So I think that could start throwing people off even more. But back onto this topic, I think it'll be cool to see how they end it one way or the other. And I think there's other things going on here that, again, we haven't touched on yet, and I'm kind of waiting for you to drive us into. So I'm gonna say for Mephisto, yeah, I'm on board with it, and I can't wait to see it. If they want to bring in Ghost Rider, I don't think they have enough breadcrumbs laid for that by the end of this season, but he could be the way that they tie things together a little bit, is in terms, as opposed to bringing in Mephisto. Ghost Rider showing up could do it, or even Blackheart, to go off in same direction. I mean,
Yeah.
Blackheart's Mephisto's son, for those who don't know, and
Was
I
he
would really love
he
to
was
see
the
a
one
proper
in
Blackheart.
Ghost Rider, right? That Wes Bentley
Yeah.
played.
Yeah, they gave a really shitty portrayal of Blackheart in the Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider, an episode coming to you at some point soon as part of our Rewind Theater series.
It's on the wheel. It's on the wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I remember that movie vividly because I'm a Nick Cage fan. I know not everybody is, but that portrayal of Blackheart. I mean, it was very fitting for the time that the movie was made, where they didn't just dive full into what Blackheart would actually look like. You know? So during that time, they were not leaning as far into the comic book appearance of things as they are now.
Yeah. So, Brian, was there more pieces to your master plan, or was that the
That was
sort of
pretty much
scope
it.
of
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just trying, in my mind, incorporating all the stuff we've seen so far. The book, Agatha, clues for Mephisto, and it answers the question of why the kids are no longer there. I feel like if the kids are going to get sacrificed, that's not something they're going to show in the show. I think this is a cleaner way to do it. They're just gone, and then you find out after the fact. It still gets the end result of the kids are missing.
Sacrificing the kids to summon Satan in a Disney show, which is enough.
Right. Yeah.
For
You can
Disney,
infer
I
enough
think that's
from
as
there.
far as they would go.
Yeah.
But yeah, and they could also write it off in the way that, again, the question that we've asked a few times: are the kids even real in a way? So maybe they could just say, like there was this manifestation of, corporeal energy that she created somehow, and that is actually like the ingredient she needed. So it's not like you ever had real children that went away. I don't know. I'm just trying to Disney-fy it a little bit.
I was under
they
the impression
definitely-
they were never real to begin with, or at least that
Yeah,
they couldn't exist outside the hex, the bubble.
Right.
Like they were just stuck there.
They grew to 11 years old in a matter of days or powers or whatever the hell it was. They're not real.
Right.
There's something there that's not right about them.
And so I think I the thing that closes the circuits best, Brian, is what you just said. I will admit that. I think, and not that it has to be impacted by it, I still really want to understand who is in charge and how
Agreed.
it started. If
I
we
think
don't
we'll get there.
I hope so. If we don't get that, those are very important things that would help in making sense of it all, or at least just provide satisfaction. Like, there's no reason not to explain that.
Yeah. Mike, I know you brought it up earlier, so I kind of want to spin back around to that, but Vision trying to escape the hex. So, to me, and we talked about, the last time we talked about this, whether or not Vision was alive, if he's, a puppeteering corpse and stuff like that. Everything we've seen so far, I think, is still, to me, falling in line with puppeteering corpse.
So I think we have arguments against that. Not necessarily, like, directly saying, like, no, definitely not. But more along the lines of, if Wanda doesn't want something in or out, it doesn't go in or out easily.
Okay.
The only thing we see enter easily is the drone.
Right.
What is it? Monica.
Yeah.
The first time.
Well, that was
Monica
also before
accidentally enters.
the hex changed from blue to red.
Well, yes, and that's once she realized, like, I think without her will involved, something could get in, but getting out, we've only ever been shown her forcing things out.
Yeah.
Easily. So I think changing whatever the hex does to them requires her input. Okay, so going through the hex, obviously, this is another thing I wanted to get to. It changed Monica.
Yeah.
And I'll get to what I think's going on there. But it changed her, and I think that whatever's going on requires Wanda's permission. So I don't necessarily think that it means that, oh, he's definitely dead inside there. It means that she didn't want him to leave, and maybe she had extra protections up against him leaving that
I
weren't.
I could buy that. There's one specific line of dialogue that to me is like, nope, he's dead.
Okay.
Is when Darcy says they're tracking the source of whatever, I forget the guy's name, but the head of sword guy.
Mhm.
He's tracking
Yeah,
something
yeah.
inside the hex. What he's tracking is decaying vibranium.
Well, all matter decays.
Right, but if Vision is alive, he wouldn't be decaying, right?
Yeah, you're decaying right now, man. Carbon atoms decay. I mean, that's called carbon dating.
All right,
I
semantics.
think
but to
that's-
me,
yeah,
I'm thinking that's the dead
it's
corpse
way
of
too
Vision is
deliberate.
what he's tracking.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, scientifically speaking, like, they do. What's the term for it with, like, depleted uranium? They can
Half-life.
track half-life. They can track all that scientifically based on atoms decaying. Like, in everything is decaying over time
But I think the argument
at a
against that,
specific rate.
the argument against that though is that they already had a decaying corpse for 5 years, so they are still honing in on that signature. And if he has truly been put
vibranium's
back
also
together,
extremely
and
rare.
I get that. I just think it's not as strong to conclude that he is. It's not as strong support to say he is therefore back, quote, alive and resurrected.
Oh, I know. I understand exactly what you're getting at, and I tend to agree with you. I'm just playing devil's advocate to say it's not necessarily like concrete is what I'm getting at. Like the decaying thing, like it's scientifically that's just a term in science.
Well, half the time too, I talk myself out of it because I think that line of dialogue, the decaying vibranium, and they keep bringing up Vision's corpse and stuff. So I'm still thinking he has to be dead. However, I don't know how a dead corpse seemed to be thinking for himself.
Yeah,
That's the part that throws me.
Right, and I will say, just go back to the verbiage for a moment. Why would the head of sword have to say decaying? Why
Right.
not just look at tracking vibranium metal signatures? It's way too deliberate of a usage of decaying
Fair
for
enough.
for at least them to believe that thing is just reanimated somehow with a thing. And yes, we discussed this last time, the idea that where is his sentience coming from? Maybe it could be, now that we have some of this stuff, maybe there's an influence from Agatha.
On Vision?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I could see it.
Could be.
Yeah. That's
I
that's
mean,
another
and
answer
it's
I'm
also,
waiting
if
for.
Mephisto's involved, he could be wished back into existence.
Right.
Like, that could be part of the deal with the devil, is that you get your vision back, but only inside this bubble.
True.
Right. And I definitely I'm still thinking, dead or alive, it doesn't matter. I don't think he can exist outside the bubble, which is what that also episode where he's trying to leave solidifies.
Yeah, either by
I would want to see
magic,
some.
what am I thinking? Like has the hooks in him. He's tied to it.
Yes.
He's tandemed to it.
And I think that would be mostly confirmed if we had seen anybody else leave on their own.
Right.
Like, on their own accord, just up and walk out.
Fair.
However, what I wanted to discuss is something that I brought up as a possibility, which it seems like it's possible at this point that Wanda is creating mutants inadvertently. Did either of you come to this conclusion because of what she did to Monica?
Yeah.
Her DNA is
Darcy
changing.
explains it as like rewriting her DNA.
Yeah.
So I think you could pass that off as a mutation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
go that way.
like, maybe everybody that's in there is going to be the start of mutants.
Very well could
Like
be.
that's how mutants begin. Is Wanda rewrote the DNA of this town in New Jersey?
The only thing I'm wondering if, like, I don't know if it would affect the whole town, only because no one's left since they've been in there. The problem with Monica
They
is
have to get out at some point.
she's been going in and out.
Well, she did it once.
She's done
She
it
went
twice
in-
now.
Well, no, she went in, which presumably everybody had to go in at some point.
I don't know. Not necessarily. They didn't have to pass through something.
Yes.
She may
that's
have
sort of
been
what I'm getting
initially
at.
been able to. Now, well, it depends.
But
Now,
do we
Mike,
know
you-
that passing through is what caused it, or was
being
it going
within?
from control to not being controlled?
Right.
Was it the barrier, or but what I'm getting at is eventually everybody's going to have to be released, or Wanda's going to have to murder the whole town. One of the two things is going to have to happen. They're all going to die, or they're all
Mhm.
going to be going back to whatever they were beforehand,
Yeah.
or the town's going to remain intact. Something. One of those three things, I think, is the only possibilities we can say logically. If Monica is changed enough to become Photon, which is
Mhm.
where she becomes, what she becomes eventually in comic book lore and all that, it's possible that what Wanda is doing could be altering the DNA of people, and through that alteration create, maybe not mutants inside the bubble, but the DNA that is altered is the reason that mutants come into the MCU. Just as this is how it starts, origin point.
I would buy that.
I'm suspecting because there's no way that eventually, and maybe even soon, once they really start to dive in, there's no way that you're not going to get a character like Storm. There's no way that you're not going to get characters who originate from other parts of the world. So
right. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if the energy signature that this thing produces and the effect it has on people's bodies is the catalyst for the creation. But it would make more sense to me that in the end, the release at some point, like before its ultimate destruction, either in the act of getting it to go away or during the struggle to fix the conflict, that the energy surge does cover the entire Earth.
It almost feels like
when
that's
it
like
blows up,
And it doesn't
basically.
affect-
the particles
yeah.
do the thing.
And it doesn't affect everybody, so not maybe everybody gets mutated, but whatever happened,
It triggers the mutations.
something like that.
People's-
Yeah,
the
because
mutant gene was already there. It was latent, and in people
be.
who had it, this triggers their mutation.
yes, that actually would track better because you can't just. It's not going to work to say the first generation of all mutants in the MCU came from this affected town in New Jersey that she did. It has to spread out more, and Mike, what you
That
just said, I
makes more
think
sense.
is the way to do it. At some point, it triggers the entire planet either for a small period of time or only briefly, and that dormant thing lying within all of our DNA is turned on.
Well,
I feel like
and it's not
it'd be
necessarily
really
in
funny.
all of us.
I think it'd be really funny if they explained the creation of mutants away the same way they were trying to explain the creation of Inhumans. Like, it's the same thing. You got something in your DNA that's been there, and it takes a catalyst to jumpstart it, and now you've got powers.
I didn't even.
Well, you do
start
know that
trying to
in the
watch
comics, the
Inhumans, so I'm not sure
Inhumans
what
are
the-
mutants, right?
Wait, sorry, I heard both of you once.
Go ahead, Josh. I'll get to mine after.
Oh, I only said that since I didn't even try to watch the Inhumans, I was unaware of what.
Well, I mean,
type
you
of
watched Agents of
explanation they
S.H.I.E.L.D..
provided.
They had the
Right.
same explanation
Yeah.
in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Quake is an Inhuman.
The
Yeah.
crystals, the
Oh,
stuff
well,
that they use, that's
yeah,
all the
that's true.
catalyst.
That's true. Yeah.
What I was saying was technically Inhumans are mutants, and the catalyst just activates their mutation.
Okay.
Is all that actually, like, that's the comic explanation of the Inhumans, is that the Terrigen Mist affects all mutants and is capable of doing that to anybody with a mutant gene.
Okay, all right. So that's where I was
So-
getting confused a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, a normal human that doesn't have a mutant gene won't be affected the same way by the Terrigen Mist. They'll get
Right.
sick and probably die, but they
Right.
won't become a mutant. So the Inhumans were a different sect that were all affected by the Terrigen Mist and went to live separately on, is it the moon? Or
They went to the moon,
they
yeah.
went to the moon. And they kind of have their own society there, separated, similar in the way that Magneto wanted to create the thing on Genosha. The Inhumans kind of realized it more completely. And eventually, I think, like, Magneto draws inspiration from Black Bolt and his society when he creates Asteroid M
Right, okay.
and the whole society there. So it's kind of something that it would follow that same path because it can. Because
Yeah.
they are kind of the same.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's just, I guess it's funny to me thinking of just, like, how all of this came to be for, like, just the MCU in general. It's like the MCU, Marvel couldn't use mutants, so they went for Inhumans, and now we're full circle again, where they're going to use the Inhuman explanation, possibly, to get mutants back in their MCU proper.
Yeah. And I think that like, bringing that in offers a way out for mutants, perhaps, that you want to say have been around a long time, to
Yeah.
come forward. So people that had their mutation triggered in other ways.
Right.
So some mutants that are ancient, like Apocalypse or Wolverine, that have been around for centuries or millennia, having them pop up or, realize, oh my God, there's more mutants.
Yeah.
Where somebody like Wolverine may not even know that other mutants exist. Kind of the way, like, and I guess it's more like X-Men First Class, where, like, you see, like, Xavier first meeting Mystique and realizing there's somebody else like him.
Right.
You could have those moments for mutants where they were hiding what they are. And then when the world starts to expand in terms of mutants and a lot of them show up, now they're not so shy about it.
Right.
Could be a thing.
All right. I didn't realize we were going this long, so we're gonna maybe we'll try to wrap it up here a little bit. A couple other quick things, sort of, for us. We went through the whole, like, the last episode we talked about. It ended with the reveal of Pietro coming back and stuff like that, and we went on this whole tangent of, like, what does this mean for the X-Men universe and all this stuff, which right now seems to be null and void, because if he is a manifestation of Agatha or somehow tied to that has no bearing on Fox's X-Men universe, I don't think, right? We shouldn't be worried about that anymore, I don't think.
I'm entirely if he's a manifestation from Agatha, I'm entirely confused by why he's him and why they acknowledge that he's not the Pietro she knows.
So the only thing I could think of, and this is a roundabout way to get there, but if everything has to be pulled through the prism of, like, the decade it's in, Aaron Taylor Johnson's Quicksilver wasn't there in the 80s. The only reference for Quicksilver in the 80s would have been in Evan Peters' Quicksilver.
Oh, that makes sense.
What reference from where? For who?
Whatever. Either way, like that's what I mean. It's a roundabout way to get there, but his movies of X-Men were set in that decade.
Yeah, but I wouldn't buy that as an explanation.
That's the best I got. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm just trying to rationalize it in my head. That's the best I got.
So do you think that potentially at the time, like in the next episode or two, when it catches up to Ultron, that we could see Aaron Taylor Johnson take over?
I would kind of love it somehow. Honestly, I just kind of feel bad for him that like they may or may not be using his character, but they're not using him. To me, I'm like, damn it, bring him back somehow. So any way they can fit him in, I'm fine with it. If they want to do it that way, I'll buy it.
I mean, I don't personally see an explanation for Quicksilver being from another cinematic universe, except what Josh had brought up, and that he was a form of Mephistopheles, and you know what I mean? It was just something that happened where Mephisto's like, here, I found this version of your brother. And he just put in the wrong one. It's still a multiverse thing. He just inserted the wrong version of her brother.
So it's one of those like deal with the devil type of things. You want your brother, I'm going to give you your brother, just not the one you're looking for.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd buy that too. I'd be fine with that. The other thing is we went and detailed and tried to guess whoever this aerospace engineer was going to be that's crafting this vehicle for Monica, who turns out to be someone I didn't recognize and is basically a nobody. So, which was kind of funny because like again, this is fucking the internet in a nutshell. Everyone was speculating for weeks who this aerospace engineer is. So the internet came to the conclusion it's got to be John Krasinski's Reed Richards. So when Reed Richards, played by John Krasinski, does not show up in this episode, the internet goes batshit crazy and says, "Where the fuck is my Reed Richards?" Like, no one ever said he was coming, so what the fuck is your problem? Like,
so did I miss that? Who was the aerospace engineer that...
I'm assuming who she was talking to was the Army lieutenant, yeah.
Okay.
She's the only one she seemed to have a rapport and a relationship with, like they knew each other, and she's saying, you know, this thing's up to specs for what you sent and all this stuff, so they dropped a name, but the name was not apparent to me. It's not a character I'm familiar with.
What was the name? Do you have it down?
I didn't write it down. I don't remember.
I thought that might have been what they were doing, but it could have just easily been like, this is the armed forces contact that she has.
Okay, so the aerospace engineer is still out there. They just didn't come with the vehicle themselves.
Possibly, yes.
Yeah.
So they just sent it to the Army. The Army sent it to them, or Sword sent it to them, and
right.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that being more likely because because this woman that's at this spot here that gets them the vehicle, are we assuming she built this?
I was under the impression, yes, she's the one that somehow whoever
on the spot that quickly.
Not on the spot. I think that they shipped it there wherever the lab was. That they retrofitted it and brought it there. But I figured
you assume she came with it.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think you're wrong for possibly thinking that. I just took it a different way.
Okay.
I guess what I would say is if the aerospace engineer is somebody else at a different location that didn't come with on the delivery, I would accept that too.
Okay. Yes, that thought honestly had not occurred to me. They just, when she starts talking to this person who I assumed was supposed to be her contact, I thought that was the same contact she'd been referring to the whole time as the aerospace engineer. So when they name drop someone, I'm like, you're not Reed Richards. I don't know who you are, and I didn't bother looking you up to see if you're important.
Yeah, I got her on IMDb. It's Major Goodner.
That's the name of the character?
Yes.
Okay.
Goodner. Yeah, I don't... Let's see.
Do some on-the-fly investigating.
Goodner.
And there's...
So,
and of course,
the only...
A bunch of the initial results I'm getting are all working under that assumption of, the aerospace engineer is finally revealed. It's Major Goodner. Who is a Major Goodner? So I don't know if we want to do that right now. Just maybe chalk it up to possibly that might have been the answer, and if not, it is still yet to be explained.
We'll wait and see. But I like that better. Like the point that they continually make of like for 3 episodes or 2 episodes at least, she's talking about like her contact, this aerospace engineer. So the way they're building it up, it seems like it should be a reveal of some kind.
Yeah.
So, but the thought had not occurred to me that this engineer is still like in a lab somewhere and just maybe doesn't do field work and just stays in a lab. Like, I would buy that.
I feel like Major Goodner is not an aerospace engineer personally. I feel like somebody that's an aerospace engineer, that's what they do. They're not a military major. They may have a military position, but they would be like not showing up in fatigues and
Right, I expected to see somebody in a lab coat.
Or,
But-
I mean, even just like a normal scientist person in a sweater or something. Like a scientist, not a soldier.
It was just like, I think, based on their interaction, I was under the impression that she was the one she was talking to the whole time, and they were the ones going back and forth on the design and figuring it out. So that's... Maybe I just read into it a little bit more. So, all right, jury's still out on that. We'll wait and see. I think that was the last I had. Yeah, because we talked about Monica's powers. We talked about Vision, alive or dead. Last one for me. End of the episode when Agatha, kind of reveals herself to Wanda. She kind of like waves her hands, and you see a little bit of like Wanda's eyes change color to purple. Are we led to believe? I could see it two ways. Either that's like Agatha like pulling the curtain back, and then the thing that happens next is the montage of like, it was all Agatha all the time. The little thing that she does to Wanda, is that more like pulling the curtain back for Wanda, and Wanda suddenly realizing, oh wait, no, this was Agatha for this was Agatha for that? Or is it Agatha putting Monica, or why I keep saying Monica? Agatha putting Wanda under some sort of influence,
control.
like mind control.
Could go either way.
Yeah, I don't know if I have
don't
enough
really have an
to go
opinion
on.
Yeah.
My gut reaction was like, okay, Wanda's going to be the villain now, but not of her own doing. Now she's under Agatha's control, and now they have to break that hold somehow. Is the way my gut reaction took it. So I guess we'll have to wait and see on that one too. But I think we got through all the questions I sort of had. And again, for talking to these guys before, I was like, oh, we'll talk for like an hour. So it's been like an hour and a half, hour 40. So we're way over that time. So that's not surprising for us. Any last call for you guys? Anything we didn't touch on you want to try to get to quickly? Last chance for predictions before the end of the series. So anything you want to get on record, this is it.
I think just about everything that we've talked about were predictions and talking out of our ass. So I'm tapped.
Okay.
Final prediction. Let's just throw something at the wall and see if it sticks like always. Yeah, I'm trying to come up with something on the fly, and it's just, it's hanging there, and it's not really happening, but let's just say, Evan Peters is actually Mephisto, and is cast as Mephisto and gets revealed.
Oh, all right. That could be an interesting twist. I wouldn't mind that one.
I wouldn't mind him as Mephisto.
No, me neither.
I think Luke Owen would be my first choice. But
Okay.
I think he fits it good.
All right, well, I guess that's it for us right now. Again, we'll probably be back in 2 weeks to talk about the series as at least the finale. See where this ends, see where this wraps up, see where we go from here. In the meantime, next week, we will be doing our next Rewind Theater episode, which will be, if you're keeping track, for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, which I am personally very excited to get to, because I haven't watched that movie in years, so this will be fun. But yeah, that's it for us. If you've enjoyed the show, please support us. Leave a 5-star rating and review. Give us a share on social media. You can follow us and subscribe on Spotify, iTunes, Google, Anchor, Stitcher, hopefully anywhere you can find podcasts, you can find us. Follow us on Facebook at Bry Guy Super Friends, or search for Bry Guy Super Friends. I don't know if that's the way to either way to find us. Facebook.com/Bry Guy Super Friends. You can find us there. Questions, comments, topic suggestions, any of that stuff, we'll check it out. Try to send us emails, bryguysuperfriends@gmail.com. It's legit, it works, it is valid. I probably will not check it, but it's there in 3 years when I finally check it. Hit us up on Twitter at BGSuperFriends. Again, find me on Twitch, at Jedi Bry Guy for whenever we do a live show at some point and record this show live. We will do it there. And that's it for us. On behalf of Josh, Mike, and myself, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.